Before the emergence of humanity, other alien races were already exploring the rest of the universe. On the planet Somaris, Mills watches his daughter Nevine playing on the beach while explaining to his wife that he has accepted a job offer that will keep him away from home for 2 years. Normally, he takes short trips, but this time he wants the extra money to pay for Nevine's illness treatment. He then goes over to Nevine and teaches her how to whistle with her hands before finally telling her about his trip and the long period away from her. Some time later, Mills is shown sleeping on the ship, where he is the pilot responsible for all the care, including regularly assessing the cryogenic sleep of the crew. On the autopilot route of the ship, Mills is awakened by the imminent danger alarm. The ship encounters unexpected meteorite activity, an asteroid belt. He immediately tries to navigate around the situation, but the ship is hit multiple times and begins to break apart. He sends out an emergency signal while guiding the ship to land on the nearest planet. During the crash, the ship ends up splitting into 2 parts. Mills can do nothing but think of his daughter before the impact. Upon waking up, Mills is now in an unknown location, with the ship's computer informing him that they are off course, with no identification of the planet. After moving around, he realizes that there is a piece of metal stuck in his stomach, and without anesthesia, he removes it and cauterizes the wound. Next, he puts on his protective suit and begins to investigate the ship to determine the extent of the damage, discovering that the cryogenic chamber wing is compromised and the ship is in pieces, with one part of it entirely lost. He then arms himself for precaution and exits the ship, which is inside a puddle of water. There, without him noticing, a mysterious creature swims around him. As he walks, he comes across some bodies of the crew and is devastated to realize that none of them survived. After inspecting the entire ship and noticing that only 2 out of the total 11 capsules are missing, as they ended up in another part of that planet, he sends another distress call stating that he is in unknown territory, in an atmosphere that is breathable. But when he looks at his weapon, he gives up everything, sending a message not to rescue him. Without any expectation of staying alive in that unknown place, he decides to take his life with his gun, but memories of Nevine, his daughter, prevent him from doing so. There is still power in the piloting section of the ship, and there he gathers all the files with the messages Nevine has been sending just so he can miss her. Suddenly, the computer detects an operational pod nearby. Mills rushes to investigate and is surprised to discover that passenger Koa is still alive inside, so he immediately pulls her out and cradles her in his arms. On the way back to the ship, Mills notices a huge footprint on the ground, revealing that this planet is Earth, 65 million years ago, which means he is surrounded by dinosaurs. The duo arrives at the ship as night falls, and Mills spends the night dreaming about his daughter. The next morning, Mills is determined to escape solely to save the girl. He uses the ship's computer to find the other half of the ship, but the scan doesn't locate it. When Mills goes out to explore the area and discovers huge bones that indicate how dangerous the local predators are, he is also accidentally hit by a blast of hot geyser, something that surprises him as he has never seen it before. After recovering, he sees something shining in the distance and realizes that the other half of the ship is on top of a distant mountain, approximately 15 kilometers away as measured by his system. But as Mills starts to consider which path to take, he is suddenly attacked by a small dinosaur. After struggling with the creature, Mills pushes it to the ground and strikes it with his weapon until it's motionless. Moving away from there, he remains alert to any sound, and when he investigates where the noise is coming from, he discovers that it's Koa, who has left the ship and is watching him cautiously. She runs away in fear, not knowing exactly who he is, and Mills follows her until they both fall off a cliff, where they find a large dinosaur on the ground, covered in worms and flies. It was the food for another predator, and both are astonished by this sight, as they had never seen it before. Without exchanging words, they hear and see the trees behind them moving. Mills manages to spot an even larger creature approaching, so he grabs Koa and drags her back to the ship. While tending to the wound she got from the fall, he tries to explain the situation but realizes they don't speak the same language. and the ship's translator isn't working. To make himself understood, Mills spreads red powder on a table and draws the mountain with the capsule to explain that they need to get there to escape. Koa joins him and draws her parents, showing that she understands the words home and family. So, to keep her calm, Mills tells her that his family is also on the mountain. After that, Mills sends another distress signal saying that he found a survivor, and that in the records, her parents were also on the ship, but both did not survive. Koa finds recordings of Mills' daughter, Navine. As she watches them, it is revealed that during the first year of the journey, Navine's illness worsened, and she had to be taken to the hospital. During the first months, her messages were happy and full of pride for her father, but over time, she became angry at him for not being there for her. When Mills finds Koa watching the tapes, he turns them off and immediately announces that they must leave. Once they have enough supplies in their backpack, Mills and Koa start walking through the wilderness, making sure to stay quiet to avoid attracting predators. The journey is long and challenging. During the day, Koa sees something red shining in the sky but doesn't comment on it. Eventually, Koa gets bored with all the walking and picks some fruits from a bush to throw at Mills just to annoy him. Irritated, Mills uses a scanner to prove that the fruits are not edible, but she just wants to play. On the way, a giant insect lands on Mills' neck, and he reflexively kills it with his hand. His hand becomes completely sticky, and he tries to clean it on a tree, but it's strong, and a piece of bark ends up stuck to his hand, making Koa laugh. To tease her back, Mills tries to touch her with the dirty hand, playfully, and she relaxes, but their game is interrupted when a small tree falls in front of them. There are strange noises coming from the forest, and they both look and find a baby dinosaur trapped in highly sticky mud. Koa feels pity and rushes to help it, which Mills considers very dangerous. As she doesn't listen, Mills ends up helping her to finish faster. The little creature scampers away as soon as it's freed, but only a few steps later, it's attacked by a group of small carnivorous predators that quickly pounce on the baby and defeat it. Mills quickly drags Koa so that those predators don't see them, and she doesn't have to watch the baby being devoured. But she can tell what's happening and cries. After the dinosaurs leave, the duo continues their journey, stopping near a waterfall to wash up and fill their water bottle. Mills is concerned about the condition of his stomach wound, but as he watches Koa, he thinks of Navine, and that's motivation enough to keep him moving. Koa finds some beautiful flowers, and being very delicate and serene, she tries to put them in Mills' hair until he feels comfortable enough to wear them. Minutes later, Mills' scanner loses the mountain's location, so he decides to climb a tree to get a better view and recalibrate the device in the area. But up there, an insect climbs on his hand, startling him, and the movement causes the branch to break, losing his balance and falling to the ground, dislocating his arm in the fall. While Mills tries to press his arm against a tree to try to put the bone back in place, a group of dinosaurs hears the noise and begins to approach. To speed things up, Mills asks Koa to step on his arm so he can pull and put the bone back in place. They are almost attacked, but Mills manages to shoot them in time and immediately asks Koa to run away from there. And as soon as she's far enough, Mills activates some small bombs that quickly eliminate half of the dinosaurs. But more of the same species keep coming, and he can only shoot them down one by one. Meanwhile, a group of flying dinosaurs lands near Koa, and upon noticing her, she starts crawling to hide behind a tree trunk. Unfortunately, the same predators that are with Mills find her, and she has no escape. When they are about to attack her, Mills appears and shoots them all. However, from behind, there's one hidden that jumps on Koa from behind and drags her away. Mills goes after it quickly and scares the creature with shots. After that, Koa is very frightened, as she almost lost her life. There's no energy after a trauma. It takes time, even to be close to Mills. He realizes she won't leave easily, so he decides to sit down and give her some space patiently. As it starts to get dark, Mills decides to whistle as he used to do for his daughter, trying to calm Koa. That moves her, and she responds with her own whistling method, finally agreeing to continue. After a lot of walking, the duo arrives at a cave where they'll spend the night. Mills installs some sensors that will alert them to possible dangers and uses his scanner to look at the sky, which finally makes him realize there are asteroids. Thinking it might be an asteroid shower, he's not worried because the device doesn't detect any irregularities. Suddenly, Koa distracts him by revealing that she brought one of Nevine's tapes with her, and although Mills is initially annoyed, he ends up playing the tape as Nevine brings comfort to both of them. While Mills tries to sleep, he can't stop thinking about the day his wife called to tell him that Nevine, his daughter, had died in the hospital. Later, during the night, Mills is awakened by the sensors alerting him to imminent danger. When he checks on Koa, he discovers that an insect has entered her mouth. He immediately uses a tool to kill it, making Koa cough up the remains. Then, the sensors continue to indicate danger. They look toward a passage inside the cave and hear a sound. At that moment, amid a torrential rain, an enormous T-Rex appears outside the cave. Mills shoots at it several times as Koa runs for the passage in the cave. The T-Rex, although injured in the eye, tries to reach them, but they both manage to enter the passage in time. The duel immediately begins to look for an exit, unaware that there's an inhabitant inside. After much walking and squeezing through narrow spaces, they become disheartened when they reach a dead end. However, Mills notices an airflow and finds a small gap between two rocks. He attempts to dig it larger, but after a few hours, he decides to give up. When Koa realizes this, she becomes furious and insists on trying again, repeating family continuously, while Mills, devastated and completely exhausted, tries to explain to her that they are doomed, but she doesn't understand. Thinking he doesn't have the right tools, Mills has a sudden idea. He uses some explosives to widen the gap enough for both of them to pass through. He then gives the remaining explosives to Koa so she can stay safe while she explores. Going ahead, Koa crawls through the narrow hole and confirms there's enough space on the other side, so Mills tries to follow suit. Unfortunately, the hole suddenly collapses, separating the two. Mills shouts in frustration as he loses contact with Koa. His only option is to backtrack, and there, with his flashlight's battery dwindling, he's surprised by the creature that inhabits the area. He arms himself and prepares for the attack, but the creature knows the terrain well and hides. Mills uses his scanner to track the dinosaur's location. When the creature attempts to attack him from behind, Mills anticipates the move and starts firing, but the dinosaur strikes him and makes him drop the weapon, biting his arm. Mills fights until he manages to reach his scanner and activates a frequency that frightens the animal, giving him the upper hand in the confrontation, reclaiming his weapon and finishing off the creature. Meanwhile, Koa manages to exit the cave. She explores the forest on her own and finds a massive bone that she can use as a weapon. She wraps the bone with the poisonous fruits she had stored in a large leaf before placing it in her backpack. Mills exits the cave and, looking up at the sky, realizes that the asteroid is now much closer. With his scanner, he discovers that it is, in fact, a massive asteroid, a catastrophic threat that will collide with Earth. He immediately goes in search of Koa and hears her scream as a dinosaur approaches her. Koa runs to hide inside the trunk of a tree while Mills rushes toward her but stumbles and falls into quicksand. He shouts, calling for Koa, as he sinks slowly. Koa hears Mills' call, gathers courage, and waits for the dinosaur to enter the tree trunk to lock it inside, throwing bombs at it before making her escape. Mills, unable to support himself, sinks until he disappears. However, he is saved when Koa manages to reach the quicksand safely and leans over a tree branch to help Mills get out of the hole. The duo reunites with a tight hug, and then Mills explains the situation about the asteroid to Koa so they can run the final miles. As night falls, the pair finally reaches the base of the mountain. Mills ties a rope to Koa, and she starts climbing first. Cleverly, she intricately ties the rope to trees and rocks to support Mills' weight as he climbs as well. Moments later, they find the other half of the spaceship, and Mills immediately powers up the computer to confirm that there's a rescue shuttle that will depart once the capsule leaves Earth's atmosphere. Koa goes in search of her family, and eventually finds all the cryogenic tanks destroyed, and she is furious with Mills for the lie. As she cries, Mills pulls out a picture of Nevine and explains that he lost his daughter while he was on the spaceship, working, and couldn't do anything. Now they only have each other and comfort one another with a hug. Suddenly, smaller meteorite fragments begin falling to Earth, so Mills and Koa rush to get inside the emergency capsule. When Mills is about to press the launch button, a piece of the meteorite hits the ship, causing the capsule to descend down the mountain, leaving the duo unconscious during the fall. Koa wakes up first and quickly presses the launch button, but the computer explains that it can't launch from that position. As Mills begins to wake up as well, a massive T-Rex arrives and starts attacking the capsule. During the fall, the weapon ended up far away, so Mills risks everything by exiting the capsule to retrieve it, but he finds out that the weapon is unloaded and needs time to prepare the shots. While a second dinosaur joins the attack, Mills runs for cover behind a piece of the ship and repairs the weapon. The dinosaurs suddenly surround him, so Koa plays a holographic video of Navine outside the ship, distracting the dinosaurs by making them believe it's real. Taking advantage of this distraction, Mills steps out and quickly kills the first creature, while the other one pushes the ship trying to reach Koa. Mills goes after it as well, and after a few successful shots, that creature also dies. Thanks to the push from the creature, the capsule is now in the right position for launch. Before Mills can return to the ship, the beast he had wounded in the eye at the cave's edge returns and starts chasing him. Then he asks Koa to activate the ship and exit, and quickly runs towards the geysers, luring the creature, where he manages to have the dinosaur hit by a jet of hot water. Unfortunately, this doesn't cause much damage, but at that moment, Koa appears and hits the dinosaur in the eye with the bone she had prepared earlier. The dinosaur starts to thrash and ends up stepping on another geyser. This time the jet hits its belly and burns it completely. After that, Mills and Koa return to the capsule and manage to take off just before the asteroid impacts Earth, triggering the extinction of the dinosaurs. When the capsule exits the atmosphere, the autopilot guides it to the rendezvous point where a rescue ship will be waiting for them. The movie summary concludes here. Don't forget to support the channel by liking, subscribing, or choosing one of these two videos to continue from here. Until next time.